Hello friends, my name is Arpit and I am here with today's analysis. Today is 21st of August and we are going to cover three very important topics in news. These topics are not only important from prelims point of view but also from mains point of view. Hence, we will be covering them holistically. So, the topics are, the first is Kachativu Island. Now, this topic is in news because the Tamil Nadu CM has demanded that this island should be returned to India from Sri Lanka. India handed over this island to Sri Lanka in 1974 through an executive order. There has also been a case pending in the Supreme Court with respect to this island. We'll see the holistic coverage of this particular island. What was the historical issue? Then what was the dispute? How was the dispute settled? Why this island, or why there's a litigation in the Supreme Court with respect to this island? What is the central government's stand on this particular island? All these things we'll be covering. Then the next topic is Lunar 25 versus Chandrayaan 3. Here we are doing a comparative analysis between both these projects. This project was, I would say, a lunar landing mission of Russia, and this is a lunar landing mission of India. Coincidentally, both of these missions were undertaken at the same time. Coincidentally, both of these lunar missions had almost the similar landing site, that is the lunar South Pole. But unfortunately, Lunar 25 has failed yesterday. Chandrayaan 3, let's be hopeful. Day after tomorrow, that is August 23, is the expected day of landing of Chandrayaan 3 on the moon surface. And in the last 4 years, Russia has become the 5th country who has failed to do soft landing on moon. So it is becoming more and more challenging. We'll study all this in this particular topic. Next is poverty and hunger in India. This is an editorial covered from the Indian Express. And we've been talking a lot about poverty reduction, including the Prime Minister of India in his Independence Day speech talked about poverty reduction in the past few years. Also, various indexes, whether it be the National Multidimensional Poverty Index or the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, also highlight the reduction of poverty in India. We'll see a timeline of poverty reduction in India, but we'll also look into the persisting challenge along with poverty reduction is hunger. Hunger and malnutrition is still a very big challenge, and especially among the children. Why this challenge is there? What can be done to tackle this challenge or face this challenge? So, all this we will be covering in these three topics. So, let's start with the first topic, that is the Kachativu Island. Now, as I told you that the Tamil Nadu Chief Minister is demanding that this island be brought back to India. Why is he demanding? Because he feels that the fishermen belonging to Tamil Nadu state, they are, discriminated against, or they are exploited by the Sri Lankan authorities. Last month only, many fishermen from Tamil Nadu, they were fishing and they were caught by the Sri Lankan Navy. Although they were released, but their belongings like the boat, the fishing nets, those have not been released. And those are, I would say, modes of livelihood of those fishermen. The Tamil Nadu Chief Minister believes that if this Kachativu Island comes back to India, then this issue or this problem of fishermen will be resolved. And that is why he is requesting the Indian government to take action. But can the Indian government take action on this? That is a question that has to be addressed. What is Kachativu Island? Where is it located? First, let's look into that. Now, the Kachativu Island is located, this red spot which you are seeing is Kachativu Island. This is India, Ramanathpura, Rameshwaram, the last point. Then from here starts Sri Lanka. This is the Jaffna province of Sri Lanka in the northern side, and this is the Park Strait. And here is the Kachativu Island. Now, in 1974, the Indira Gandhi government did, I would say, a boundary agreement with Sri Lanka, which decided the international maritime boundary line with Sri Lanka. Now, the international maritime boundary line is the maritime boundary with Sri Lanka. This was decided in 1974. And this international maritime boundary line is passing almost 1 nautical mile to the west of this particular island, which simply means that this island is lying in the Sri Lankan waters. Means India handed over this island to Sri Lanka. But before 1974, did India have complete control over this island? No, it was a disputed territory. Sri Lanka also laid claims, we also laid claims, and both had their own reasons. What were the reasons? We will see. But first, let us look into, while handing over or by doing this international maritime boundary line deal in 1974, what did the Indira Gandhi government do? Actually, we need to first understand that this island is uninhabited. Nobody lives on this island. But there's one church, one cathedral on this island, and that is probably the only built up structure on that island. And that is the St. Anthony's Cathedral. And no population lives. So while handing over this uninhabited island to Sri Lanka, the Indira Gandhi government said that we have two conditions. The first is that the Indian fishermen should be allowed to dry their nets on the island whence they are fishing. And second is permitting Indian fishermen to participate in St. Anthony religious festival. So these were the two conditions. In 1976, that is 2 years down the line, there was another treaty or deal signed between India and Sri Lanka. And according to that deal, fishermen from both these countries, whether India or Sri Lanka, should not be fishing in the others' territorial waters or others' exclusive economic zones. And if they are found, they should be returned back to their respective countries as a goodwill gesture. So this was, I would say, the 1974 and 1976 deal. 1974 deal, which demarcated the international maritime boundary line with Sri Lanka, clearly was passing to from, I would say, the west of this island, means clearly demarcating this island as part of Sri Lanka's territory. Now, history of the dispute. Sri Lanka's claim. Why does Sri Lanka lays claim on this island? As I told you that before 1974, this island was disputed. Both the countries had claims. It was not like it was completely under the control of India and India handed over this island to Sri Lanka. No, it was disputed. And both the countries had their own logics. What was Sri Lanka's claim? Sri Lanka's claim was that when Portuguese, who had occupied the island, means Sri Lanka, they were ruling Sri Lanka during 1505 to 1658 CE, also had exercised jurisdiction over this island, the Kachadivu Island. Hence, Kachadivu Island is part of Sri Lanka because Portuguese, who were ruling over Sri Lanka in this period, also had control over the Kachadivu Island. And, Sri Lankan, I would say the Portuguese control over Sri Lanka was, replaced by the Britishers' control as Britishers defeated Portuguese, and now Sri Lanka became the Britishers' colony. Then what was India's claim? India's contention was that the erstwhile Raja of Ramanathapuram, that was the last, I would say, territory, had possessions of it as part of his Zameen. So this is Ramanathapuram, this province. The Raja or the ruler of this province had control over this island. It was believed that this Raja's Zameen, means territory, extended up to this island. And there was an interview of this Raja of Ramanathapura in 1968 in the Hindu, which the Hindu today has clarified as well. And according to that interview also, the Raja was saying that since eternity, this is part of our Zameen. This was part of our Zameen. And hence, this Kachativu island is part of India because Ramanathapura is part of India now. Now, ownership of this island was controversial up till 1974, as I told you. And during the British era also it was controversial. It was administered by both the countries, British India as well as Sri Lanka. Since during the Britishers, Sri Lanka was also a colony of the Britishers, India was also a colony of the Britishers. So this conflict did not intensify per se. But later on, it started to intensify, and in 1974, the Indira Gandhi government took this step and gifted this island to Sri Lanka. According to that 1974 International Maritime Boundary. Then the legality of the transfer was challenged because Indira Gandhi government transferred this island as per an executive order. And according to the Constitution of India and according to various precedents like in the Berubari Union and all, any territory which is being transferred by India to other countries by executive resolution has to be followed by ratification by the Parliament of India. In case of Kachativu Island, executive order transferred that island to, Sri Lanka, but no parliamentary approval or parliamentary ratification was done after that. And this is the main issue on which, government of Tamil Nadu has, filed a litigation in Supreme Court. There was no parliamentary litigation for that. There was no parliamentary approval for that. Now, what has been the centre's stand with respect to this? Now, in August 2013, when the UPA government was here in power, the Union government told the Supreme Court that the question of retrieval of Kachativu Island from Sri Lanka did not arise, as no territory belonging to India was ceded to Sri Lanka. It was a disputed territory and the dispute was resolved. It did not belong to India per se, Kachativu Island, but it was a disputed territory. It contended that the island was a matter of dispute between British India and Ceylon. In December 2022, that is the NDA government, which is still in power, and this is last year only, the centre pointed out in its reply to in the Rajya Sabha that Kachativu lies on the Sri Lankan side of India-Sri Lanka International Maritime Boundary Line, and this International Maritime Boundary Line was drawn in 1974. And the government of India also highlighted that the matter is sub judice in the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court has to do a hearing on it, and whatever the Supreme Court delivers on it, that will be again a matter of news for us. So keep following this issue, because this issue may intensify in the time to come because of the elections around the corner, and on the Supreme Court also there may be much pressure to do an early hearing on this particular issue. So from international relations point of view, this is important. Now the next piece of news, very important, that is Lunar 25 versus Chandrayaan 3. Lunar 25, an attempt by Russia, which unfortunately has failed yesterday. This Lunar 25 was not able to do soft landing. The other is Chandrayaan 3, an attempt by India. Not failed as of now. Till now, every step, launching, then separation from propulsion module of the lander, which we covered a day or two ago, is successful till now. The lander is approaching the lunar surface and it is expected to do soft landing on August 23rd. That is day after tomorrow. So it would be clear day after tomorrow whether Chandrayaan 3 is a success or not. And let's be hopeful, let's be praying for its success. Chandrayaan 2, which was launched in 2019, was a failure. We were not able to successfully do the soft landing in Chandrayaan 2. So let us look into the comparison of Lunar 25 and Chandrayaan 3. First feature of comparison is the country. Russia, Roscosmos is the space agency of Russia which launched Lunar 25, and India's ISRO launched Chandrayaan 3. Quite simple. Landing type, soft landing here and soft landing here, it is same. Landing zone, lunar south, lunar south. But the coordinates of these two are a bit changed, a bit different. Okay. Then lift off mass, when it was lifted off from the earth, 1750 kgs, and more than the double, that is 3900 kgs of Chandrayaan 3. One such reason why Chandrayaan 3 is taking almost 39-40 days to reach the moon's surface, and Lunar 25 was expected to take only 12 days to reach the moon's surface. Then components. Only a lander is there. Lander had to land and do the research work. Lander plus rover. Lander contains the rover. Lander will land and rover will come out of the lander and do the research work. What is the mission life? 1 year. The lander would be collecting data for 1 year, and 14 days was the mission life of Chandrayaan 3. That is, rover will only be collecting data for 14 days. That is 1 lunar day. It is. So as the lunar day goes off, night comes in, electricity supply will not be there with the rover, as it is depending upon the solar energy. And since electricity supply will not be there, the rover will stop functioning. That is the main, I would say, difference between Lunar 25 and Chandrayaan 3. Apart from it, what are the mission objectives of Lunar 25 and Chandrayaan 3? Mission objectives are almost the same. They want to study the chemical composition of the lunar surface, and most importantly, they want to find a very important, I would say, discovery on the lunar surface, that is presence of water. The lunar south is an uncharted territory. No country in the world has landed on the lunar south. It is very difficult, I would say, territory. Russia, if Lunar 25 would have been successful, would have become the first country to land. Chandrayaan 3, if it becomes successful, India will be the first country to land on lunar south. So, very hopeful we should be. We should be praying to our gods. Now, I hope in this image you can see, this is basically Chandrayaan 3 launched on July 14, August 23 will be the landing date. It followed this trajectory. First, it was revolving around the Earth in the Earth's atmosphere. Then, lunar transfer trajectory. This was translunar injection which happened. And then it kept on revolving in the lunar orbit. And then finally, the propulsion module has left the, I would say, the lander. And lander is now moving towards the lunar surface. The trajectory followed by Lunar 25, one orbit, and then it was released. It entered and did the landing, which failed actually. So August 10 was the launch date. August 21-22 was probable landing date. So 10-12 days, 11-12 days it had to take. Liftoff mass 3900 kg, 1750 kg already discussed. Landing site 69.36 degrees south, 32.34 degrees east was Chandrayaan's. Lunar 25, 69.54 degrees south, just a bit, I would say, south of Chandrayaan 3, and 43.54 degree east, just a bit east of Chandrayaan 3. So, their trajectories would not clash with each other. Okay. And, there is no rover here in Lunar 25 and there is a rover here in Chandrayaan 3. These are the payloads which will be doing or which will be carrying out various, I would say, scientific experiments which they are intending to carry out on the surface of the moon. So this is the comparison between both of them. And now that is the third piece of news, poverty and hunger. And here in the screenshot you can see the hunger challenge. This has been written by Ashok Gulati. He is a professor and he is telling that poverty reduction is there. Okay, fine, we have a lot of achievements. Maybe in the next 5 to 10 years, India will be successful in eliminating poverty. But there is a challenge which is persisting, and that challenge is the hunger challenge. And gender sensitive growth with increase in farm productivity can help end the hunger and malnutrition. So let us look into the details. Now when I talk about India's achievements in poverty reduction, Now, at the time of independence, that is 1947, around 80% of our population was poor. And that too, absolute poverty was there. The Britishers had looted us. Majority of our population was engaged in the agricultural sector. Very less were in the secondary or industrial sector, and tertiary sector was though not there. Agricultural sector, which was extremely struggling, which was dependent on the monsoon rainfall. The Britishers only knew how to extract revenue from the land. They did not invest anything back on the land, and hence no irrigation facilities were there, no canals were there. The very next year, that is 1948-49, we experienced a severe drought-like situation, which led to extreme low agricultural productivity. We had to ask from USA for food aid, and we were relying on USA's food aid, that is PL 480. So we were actually begging for food. But let's come back to poverty. As and when time passed by, more and more economic activities started to spur in India. Although up till 1991, we were not able to surpass 5% of economic growth. And the main reason was that we had our economy closed. Our economy was not integrated with the world economy. In 1991, we did the LPG reforms, liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Our forex reserves were dwindling. Around 1.4 billion USD only were left. The similar situation Pakistan and Sri Lanka are facing right now. But this liberalization, privatization and globalization reforms actually helped us to, spur economic growth in our country. The economic growth started to happen, and there were 1 year or two after the LPG reforms where the economic growth touched double digits. In today's time, we are the fastest growing major economy of the world. Our economy is expected to grow somewhere between 6 to 7%. We also have forex reserves somewhere around $600 billion, from $1.4 billion to $600 billion. Now, this has made our economy more resilient against global shocks. We are also advocating Atmanirbhar Bharat, means we want to reduce dependency upon other countries and become self-reliant. The government is taking many steps. And all in all, we are able to reduce poverty as well. Now, when I talk about reduction in poverty, so just look at the timeline. At the time of independence, 80% in population was poor. Now 2005-06, the global multidimensional poverty index was released, and which highlighted 55.1% of India's population as multidimensionally poor. This global multidimensional poverty index is released by UNDP, United Nations Development Program. 2015-16, Niti Aayog was formed, and Niti Aayog released National Multidimensional Poverty Index, which is on the lines of Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, which is released by Niti Aayog. Now, the findings of the National Multidimensional Poverty Index in 2015-16, around 24.9% of India's population was multidimensionally poor. 24.9, we can roughly estimate it to be 25%. Then 2019-21, the next edition of Global Multidimensional Poverty Index in 2019-21 highlighted 16.1% population as multidimensionally poor in India, which was a significant reduction from the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index of 2005-06. Now this year, last month, the Niti Aayog has released its second edition of the National Multidimensional Poverty Index. The National Multidimensional Poverty Index released by Niti Aayog this year, that is 2023, highlights 14.96% as multidimensional poor population, which is again a significant reduction from 24.9 to 14.96, roughly around 10 percentage points. So both these, I would say, indexes, whether the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index or the National Multidimensional Poverty Index, have shown considerable amount of reduction in poverty. According to the Global Multidimensional Poverty Index, around 41.5 crore Indians have exited poverty and have come out of poverty. And the Indian Prime Minister is boasting about this achievement not only on the Indian soil but also in US when he visited in June 2023. And this is a significant achievement. According to the Prime Minister, this is his biggest achievement till now. So we are convinced with the fact that poverty reduction has happened, at least according to these indexes. And that is why we are terming it as India's achievements. Now, India's achievements in terms of food availability also we should be discussing. Now, as I told you that on the eve of independence, when there was this drought-like situation, we were, begging for food and we were dependent upon America's food aid, PL 480. But slowly and gradually, we realized one thing, that we need to be self-dependent on that, on food at least. And what an irony it was that we were a Krishi Pradhan Desh, means agricultural or agrarian society we were, where maximum of the population was engaged in agricultural or related activities. But still we were dependent on food aid. Lal Bahadur Shastri identified the gaps and he launched the Green Revolution. And he also gave this slogan, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan, to motivate the farmers, and on the other hand to motivate the soldiers also, because in 1962 we had lost a war with China, and 1965 we were on the cusp of another war with Pakistan. So that slogan was given, Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. But coming back to Green Revolution, in Green Revolution, high yielding variety of seeds were given to the farmers, fertilizers, pesticides and other chemical inputs were given. An assurance was given to the farmers that the government will be procuring food grains from them at minimum support price. This Green Revolution actually changed the face of India's agricultural society. Though this Green Revolution happened only in Punjab, Haryana and Western UP, but these three regions became the food bowl of India. From begging bowl, we became the feeding bowl. And last year, according to this year's economic survey, last year, India recorded its highest ever agricultural exports. Overall agricultural exports touched $50 billion. So we are not only able to feed our population, or we are not only able to have this agricultural productivity which is ample for us, but we are also able to export agricultural commodities. We are also maintaining this buffer stock with us, so that in terms of any emergency situation, we are able to feed our population from that buffer stock. Then we have also launched this National Food Security Act in 2013 and Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which was launched in 2020, which gives 5 kg of free, or not free now, it is free now, but when in 2013, when this National Food Security Act was launched, rice, wheat and coarse grains were given at subsidized prices to the people. 5 kg per person in priority households and 35 kg per household in Antyodaya Anna Yojana households, means the poorest of the poor. These food grains were given at a subsidized price, 3 rupees per kg rice, 2 rupees per kg wheat and 1 rupees per kg coarse grains. Now when COVID came, so Government of India decided to launch Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana, which gave 5 kg free wheat and rice to the people. In addition to this allocation, it was not that only this was given. But in addition to this, this was being given. And these two, I would say, schemes have benefited more than 80 crore Indians. 80 crore Indians, that is around 2/3 of the population, according to census 2011. So this was there. This Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Anna Yojana now no longer exists. It has been discontinued from 1st of January 2023. But now these allocations, only this National Food Security Act is there, and only 5 kg per person per month is available in priority households. But earlier people used to pay for this. Now they are getting it for free, that is 0 rupees. The free component from here has been taken over here. Then white revolution happened. India is the largest producer of milk. India produces roughly around 222 metric tons of milk every year. And the second number is USA, which only produces around 102 metric tons. See the difference. We should be thankful to Verghese Kurian, who is known as the father of white revolution in India. We should be also thankful to, cooperatives like Amul, which have changed the face of milk production and distribution in India. So this is another achievement. Apart from it, there's a non-food item of which we are also the largest producer, that is cotton. And this happened due to, I would say, genetic modification or genetic engineering. Atal Bihari Vajpayee, during his tenure as the Prime Minister, introduced BT cotton, that is Bacillus thuringiensis cotton, which is a genetically modified version of cotton. Introduction of this, genetically modified crop, that is cotton, has also changed or has also revolutionized cotton productivity in India. India at that time was somewhere between 5th to 10th largest producer of cotton in the world, but now India is at number 1. China is also there just near to India. But yes, it has had a considerable amount of impact on the farmer's income. Now, persisting challenge. Food availability is there, productivity is there. But the paradox is hunger and malnutrition is also there. One major reason is that people are not aware about their entitlements. Another reason is, ineffective delivery of services by the government also, although that has considerably improved since the last 10 years. And that is why, because of these two factors, hunger and malnutrition are existing, despite the fact that productivity is high, productivity is very good. Now, what are the statistics in front of us with respect to hunger and malnutrition? According to NFHS 5, National Food Family Health Survey 5, which we covered in yesterday's video, what it is, there are, under 5 children who have been accounted. 32% of under 5 children are underweight. Underweight is basically their weight is less according to their age. Then 35% are stunted, means their height is less, and 19% is wasted. All these are, categories of malnutrition. I'll just show you what malnutrition is. Many a times, or many of you aspirants will think that malnutrition is lack of food. Actually, it is lack of food and excess of food, where nutrition is not available in adequate amount. That is malnutrition. Now, malnutrition comes in many forms. First is stunting. Stunting can be defined as people who are too short for their age. Actually, the height should be this much, the gray person you're seeing, but actually the height is this. So, according to the age, the height is short, but it should have been this much. Next is wasting. This is also called as severe acute malnutrition. Here, the weight is less, or people are too thin for their height. You should be a bit, I would say, fat. And obesity, people are overweight. All these are forms of malnutrition. And all these exist. These two are severely there, and very less, around 3% of the children are obese also in India. And that is also a form of malnutrition. So we should understand this. So malnutrition is there, existing according to NFHS 5. Global Hunger Index 2022 released last year, actually it has ranked India 107 out of 121 countries. Means a lot of hunger is still existing in the country. Then another challenge in today's era is climate change and its impact. Now I've been talking about climate induced disasters. We covered it, in the form of various editorials, like last week or last week we covered. And various disasters like heat waves, droughts, floods, all these are happening due to climate change. And all these disasters have a negative impact on agricultural productivity. Last year, wheat productivity was hampered due to heat waves in India, due to which, India had to impose export bans on wheat. We were not exporting wheat last year because we wanted to fulfill our requirements. Why we were only able to fulfill our requirements? Because agricultural productivity was less. Why it was less? Due to heat waves. Why heat waves? Due to climate change. So climate change is an established fact now, and so is the climate induced disasters. These climate induced disasters are impacting agricultural productivity. So we need to tackle this as well. If this keeps on impacting agricultural productivity, on the other hand, population is growing year by year. We have become the most populous country of the world according to the UN estimates. There will be more pressure on agricultural products. Agricultural products availability per person will reduce, and that is something we do not want, especially if we have this persisting challenge of hunger and malnutrition. Actually, per person availability of agricultural productivity should be increasing, but climate change can hamper that. So what should we be doing, or how to deal with these challenges? First is keep accelerating economic growth and make it inclusive. The way we are growing, progressing economy wise, we should keep that acceleration on, and we should make the growth inclusive. Means that growth should be impacting poorest of the poor. How that will happen? That will happen with employment generation. Then only the growth will be redistributed. Not Ambanis and Adanis only will not be benefited, but the poorest of the poor will also be benefited. And when the poorest of the poor will be benefited, that person will be having more purchasing power. And when a person has more purchasing power, that person goes for the first thing is food, for filling the stomach of his and his families. Then next is women-led development. When I talk about women-led development, women, again, around 48% of our population is women. And if women are not participating in the labor force, means 48% of the women or the 48% of the population is sitting idle. They are just mouths to eat, not hands to work. But if they also participate in the economic activities, they are employed or they do any economic work and they generate income, so they will be definitely contributing to the family's overall income. And when the family's overall income will increase, definitely it will lead to reduction in poverty further and reduction in malnutrition and hunger also. Another aspect here in women-led development is improving literacy and awareness levels in women. Now, it is often said that if you educate a woman, you educate the entire generation or you educate the entire family. But if you educate a man, you educate a man only. It is the woman, an educated woman, who will be responsible, first of all, for reproducing less amount of people or less amount of children. Means she will go for, more, I would say, aware decisions with respect to family planning and all. And it has been seen among various or in various, I would say, surveys that as the levels of literacy or awareness go up in females, the fertility rate comes down. Fertility rate coming down means she is reproducing less number of children. Like hum do, hamare do, bacche do hi acche, like this. So population growth will be sustainable. Then if she is literate and aware, she will also be aware about the hygienic standards, about the nutritional standards which she has to maintain in her house, in her children. And definitely that will have a long or far-reaching impact on hunger and malnutrition just by educating and making women aware. And we should also be looking for skill development among women, because skill development will help in increased participation of women in workforce. Now, according to the labor force participation rate, 30% only women are participating in our labor force, which needs definitely to be increased. Then next solution to this situation is improving agricultural productivity. As I told you that agricultural productive products availability per person should increase, not reduce. So we should be looking forward for this, and we should also be looking to make food more nutritious. How that can be done? Actually, genetic modification has an answer to this. Now let's suppose I'm consuming carrot. Carrot has all the vitamins and all. But if it is genetically modified, so that one carrot can have more vitamins, more nutrition also. So it is not about only increasing productivity, it is also about increasing the nutritional levels. And it is also about making the agricultural crops climate resistant. Means they can, absorb the climate shocks. If there are heat waves, they'll not get destroyed. If there are floods, they'll not get destroyed. If we do all this in agricultural sector, then definitely we are going to increase the agricultural productivity. And how we will be doing it? Increasing R&D in agriculture. Now, the author of this editorial says double, triple, or make it 10 times the R&D expenditure. But I say that increase R&D expenditure, and that increased expenditure should be very much fruitful in the results. BT cotton is the only genetically modified crop in India till now. Genetically modified mustard is going to be the second, and we will soon be covering an issue on that as well. But we need to bring in more crops here. We need to make crops more, I would say, climate resistant. Another example of making crops climate resistant is, like this year, we launched HD3385 variety of wheat. Now, wheat is a crop which is sown in the winters, October, November, and which is cultivated somewhere in March, April. We celebrate Baisakhi after cultivating wheat, or we celebrate Bihu. These are agricultural festivals which we celebrate. Now, this HD3385 variety of wheat enables wheat for early sowing, September, October, and early cultivating, that is somewhere around February. Now, early sowing and early reaping will, I would say, save the wheat from heat waves. Heat waves happen in March, April. That is the time of cultivating the wheats. But this variety of HD3385 wheat enables it for early sowing and early cultivation, which will save this wheat from the heat waves. This is also, I would say, a classic example of making the crops climate resistant or adapting ourselves with climate change. So definitely we need to do that. Just like poverty reduction we are targeting, and we are targeting elimination of poverty, which we hopefully, with the pace which we are going, we'll be able to eliminate it within the next 5 to 10 years. We should also be targeting malnutrition and hunger. That has also to be reduced. Although the government is taking requisite and necessary steps, but those steps need to be further intensified, so that we also see, indicators improving in this particular aspect of malnutrition and hunger, just like the indicators are improving in poverty. So this is it. This is it from today's session. We'll be meeting with more such exciting news, more such exciting and informative topics tomorrow. In the comment section, you can mention what all topics you want to cover. That is it. Signing off. Bye-bye. Jai Hind.